A quick note before we start, because it matters. Nobody audited these men. There are no balance sheets, no honest tax returns, no probate records that reflect reality. Every figure in this video is an estimate, drawn from federal investigators, from historians, from court testimony, and in a few cases, from the men themselves. Where a number is documented, I will say so. Where it is an estimate, I will say that too. What is not in dispute is the direction of travel. 10 men. Between them, they controlled the concrete of New York City, the garbage on Long Island, the garment trade, the docks, the trucking, the casinos of Havana, and the illegal alcohol supply of an entire American city. And not one of those fortunes reached the next generation. We are counting up. Smallest loss to largest, and by the end, the numbers stop being numbers and become something else. Number 10. Salvatore Maranzano, around $1 million and 5 months. He called himself Little Caesar. He had studied for the priesthood, read Roman history obsessively, and modeled his organization on Caesar's legions. In 1931, he won the Castellano's War, divided New York into 5 families, and declared himself Capo di tutti capi, boss of all bosses, with tribute payable upward from every family in the city. Contemporary accounts suggest he had accumulated somewhere in the region of $1 million in cash by the time he died. Roughly 20 million in today's money. On the 10th of September, 1931, men dressed as government agents walked into his Park Avenue office. His guards did not resist because he was expecting a tax audit. He was stabbed, then shot. He was 45. His family inherited nothing because there was nothing to inherit. The empire was 5 months old. The title he invented for himself was abolished within days by the man who had him killed. Number 9. Joe Masseria. An estimated $10 million and a lunch he did not finish. Joe the Boss ran what would become the Genovese family from 1922 through the most profitable period in the history of American organized crime. Estimates of his personal take run to around $10 million across that decade, something near $200 million today. He was famously greedy, taking an enormous cut from everyone beneath him and expecting gratitude for what was left. On the 15th of April, 1931, he had lunch in Coney Island with his own chief lieutenant. Veal, linguine, red wine, cards afterwards. The lieutenant excused himself to the bathroom, and 4 men walked in and shot him at the table. 45 years old. Nobody was ever convicted. His organization passed to the man who had gone to the bathroom. His family got none of it. Most of what he held was cash, kept personally, and it disappeared into the hands of the men around him within days. Number 8. Joe Colombo, 40,000 paying members, and 7 years of Mississippi, unable to speak. In 1970, a sitting crime boss founded a civil rights organization. It drew an estimated 100,000 people to Columbus Circle, signed up around 40,000 dues-paying members across several states, and got Frank Sinatra to play a benefit concert. The family's rackets at the time were estimated in the tens of millions annually, and the league itself was an income stream. 40,000 people paying dues is a business. On the 28th of June, 1971, at his own rally, a 25-year-old with a press pass shot him 3 times in the head and neck. Seconds later, a second gunman shot the shooter dead in the middle of the crowd and walked away. Despite hundreds of police present, he was never identified. Colombo did not die. He lay paralyzed and largely comatose for 7 years. Still technically the boss of a crime family, able at the end to move 2 fingers. He died in 1978 at 54. The league dissolved and the money went with it. And the family fought 3 civil wars over the next 2 decades, so destructive that 3 rival families held meetings to try to talk them out of it. Number 7. Frank Costello. An estimated $20 million and no children. They called him the Prime Minister of the Underworld for the number of judges and politicians he controlled. He took over Luciano's family when Luciano was deported and ran it through influence rather than violence. His gambling and slot machine operations across New York and Louisiana were estimated to generate tens of millions across his career, with his personal fortune put at around $20 million at its height. Well, over $200 million today. On the 2nd of May, 1957, a gunman called his name in the lobby of his own building. He turned toward the sound, and the turn saved his life. The bullet grazed his scalp. At the hospital, a detective went through his coat and found a slip of paper listing a Las Vegas casino's earnings. A failed assassination handed the government its first hard evidence of the mob's grip on Nevada. Costello refused to identify the shooter, retired, and died in bed in 1973 at 82. He had no children, and 11 months after the funeral, a recently released mobster reportedly blew the bronze doors off his mausoleum, a granite structure he had built himself in 1949 for around $18,000. No heirs, and even the building did not stay shut. Number 6. Vito Genovese. $20,000 a week, stated in open court. This one comes with a documented figure, and it is the best number in the video because it was given under oath. In 1953, Vito Genovese told a New Jersey court that he earned $125 a week as a dealer in scrap paper. His wife, in the same proceedings, told the court he earned $20,000 a week from the Italian lottery numbers racket alone, that he owned nightclubs and interests in horse and dog tracks, and that he had spent $250,000 on their house. $20,000 a week in 1953 is over $1 million a year, adjusted more than $12 million annually from one racket. He had fled to Italy in 1937 with what is estimated to have been several $100,000 in cash, financed fascist operations, and was decorated for it. Then switched sides and worked for the United States Army while taking over the black market in southern Italy. He came back, beat the murder charge, seized the family by force in 1957, and was convicted on narcotics in 1959. He died at a federal prison medical center in Springfield, Missouri in 1969, aged 71, after a decade in custody. None of it came out with him. Number 5. Carlo Gambino. $12 million to be allowed to leave. Carlo Gambino was the most successful criminal in American history. 20 years running the largest crime family in the country, 15 at the head of the commission, around 500 soldiers, and 22 months in prison across a 50-year career for tax evasion. Estimates put the family's annual revenue under him at around $500 million. His personal wealth has been estimated in the hundreds of millions, though those figures come from popular accounts rather than any record and deserve real caution. He died in his own bed in October 1976 at 74, watching a baseball game. A priest said afterwards that he had died in a state of grace. 2,000 people came to the funeral, including judges and police officers. He beat it completely. Now here is the documented part. He set his sons up in the family's legitimate business, trucking in the garment district. Around 400 vehicle. If you manufactured clothing in New York, your product moved on Gambino trucks. In February of 1992, Thomas and Joseph Gambino took a deal. $12 million in fines and restitution. Sell every company and all 400 trucks to buyers with no organized crime connections, and leave the district permanently. No prison. They paid and they walked away. Their father spent 40 years building that position. His sons wrote a $12 million check to be released from it, and 15 months later, Thomas was convicted in federal court anyway and served 5 years. Number 4. Paul Castellano. $18 million and nobody will buy it. Under Castellano, the Gambino family's revenue was estimated at around $500 million a year from construction, unions, meat and poultry, trucking, and the docks. He spent a portion of it building a mansion on the highest natural ground on Staten Island. 17 rooms, Carrara marble. 2 Olympic-sized swimming pools, one of them indoors, a garage built like a showroom for 13 cars, and a pillared portico designed to resemble the White House, which is exactly what the neighbors called it. On the 16th of December, 1985, he was shot dead outside a Manhattan steakhouse. His wife Nina, married to him for 46 years, got the house. A woman in her late 60s, widowed in the most public way imaginable, alone in 33,000 square feet. She could not carry the taxes. She sold it. And here are the documented numbers. In October 2023, the property was listed at $16.8 million. It fell out of contract. It was relisted the following year at $18 million and withdrawn again with no buyer. The reason given by local agents is that the interior is entirely marble, so renovation would be brutally expensive, and it was customized so completely to one man's idea of what power looks like that almost nobody's taste matches it. He built it to be permanent. Its permanence is now the reason nobody wants it. Number 3. Santo Trafficante. Hundreds of millions and an entire country. In the 1950s, the American Mafia built a casino city in Havana with the written cooperation of the Cuban government, which offered gambling licenses and public loans to anyone who put up a large enough building. Santo Trafficante, the Tampa boss, was identified by federal investigators as the leader of the mafia in Cuba. He ran the Sans Souci and held interests in the Capri, the Deauville, the Comodoro, the Sevilla Biltmore, and the Tropicana. The Deauville, which he built, cost $2.3 million. The Riviera, built by his associates, cost $18 million and made its investors money back in 4 months. Estimates of total American organized crime investment lost in Cuba run into the hundreds of millions in 1950s money. Then, on the 1st of January, 1959, Batista fled and the crowds came out into the streets. Slot machines were smashed and thrown into the road. It did not end in a night. It took nearly 2 years of closures, reopenings, and confusion. And the formal end came on the 24th of October, 1960, when the Cuban government published a legal resolution nationalizing the Deauville. Along with a long list of other American-owned businesses, there was nothing to negotiate with because you cannot bribe a revolution. Trafficante tried. He sent an employee with $4,500 in cash to make a detention order disappear, and the employee was arrested on the spot. The buildings are still standing. Cuba still owns them. Number 2. Al Capone. $100 million a year, down to $54,000. At his peak, Capone's Chicago operation is estimated to have taken in around $100 million a year in 1920s money. Adjusted, well over $1 billion annually. In 1928, he bought a 9-bedroom estate on Palm Island in Miami for $40,000 with a 60-foot pool and a separate guest house for the armed men on his payroll. He was convicted of tax evasion in 1931 and served 7 years. He came out in 1939 with untreated syphilis that had reached his brain. functioning at roughly the level of a 12-year-old child. He was 40. He died in that house in 1947 at 48. His widow May stayed 5 years and sold in 1952 because she could no longer afford the taxes. She got $54,000, $40,000 in 1928, $54,000 in 1952. Adjusted for inflation, that is a loss. She moved in with her sister and spent the following 34 years defending a name she had taken at 21. The house was demolished in 2023, and the empty lot it stood on was offered at $23.9 million. The land became worth a fortune. The building was the part that made it harder to sell. $100 million a year at the top, $54,000 at the bottom. Number 1. Lucky Luciano. Up to $400 million and nobody to leave it to. He invented the modern American mafia. In 1931, he ended the wars, abolished the title of boss of all bosses, divided New York into 5 families, and built the commission that governed organized crime in America for the next 55 years. Estimates of his peak fortune run from $200 million to $400 million in 1930s money. Those figures come from crime historians rather than any ledger. But if they are anywhere near right, he was among the wealthiest men in the United States. He was convicted in 1936 of compulsory prostitution, a charge he denied for the rest of his life and regarded as a humiliation. His sentence was commuted in 1946, and he was deported because he had never become an American citizen. He had arrived on the Lower East Side as a boy of 9. He spent his last 16 years confined to Naples, watched constantly, unable to leave the city, pointed out to tourists in restaurants. He died of a heart attack in the arrivals hall of Naples Airport in 1962, aged 64. His estate was reported at around $1 million, against a peak estimated at 200 times that. And here is why he is number 1, and it is not the size of the drop. There was nobody to leave it to. He never married. He had no children, no heir, no succession, no will contest, no dynasty. He built the structure that made other men rich for 60 years, and when he died, the money simply stopped. The one thing he had bought his family was a vault at a cemetery in Queens, purchased in 1935, where his mother and father were already buried, and which he could not reach for 27 years. When he died, his relatives had to petition the United States government for permission to bring the body home. Permission was granted. The first time he was allowed into the country in 16 years, he was in a coffin. They buried him under the name his mother gave him, Salvatore Lucania. There is one more. It is not a boss. It is the smallest number in this video, and it is the one that stays with you. Al Capone's only son was born in Brooklyn in December 1918. His parents married 26 days later. By then, his father had contracted syphilis and never treated it, and the boy was born with it, and he needed brain surgery as a small child and was left permanently deaf in one ear. Sonny went to university, married, and had 4 daughters. He sold used cars, apprenticed as a printer, distributed tires, and ran a restaurant with his mother. He never went near the organization and never gave an interview about his father in 4 decades, when he could have been paid extremely well to do so. In 1964, he and his mother sued a television company over its portrayal of his father. It was dismissed on the grounds that you cannot defame a dead man, which meant the name he was born with was public property, and he had no standing to object to anything anyone ever did with it. On the 7th of August, 1965, at 46 years old, he was arrested in a supermarket in North Miami Beach. 2 bottles of aspirin and a packet of flashlight batteries, $3.50. He pleaded no contest and received 2 years probation. The following year, he legally changed his surname to Brown. His lawyer said he was simply sick and tired of fighting the name. He died in 2004 at 85, and his neighbors found out afterwards who he had been. So run the numbers one more time. $100 million a year in Chicago, $500 million a year through the Gambino family, $20,000 a week from a single racket, an $18 million hotel in Havana, somewhere between $200 million and $400 million in one man's hands in the 1930s. And at the other end of it, a house sold at a loss for $54,000. A $12 million check written to be allowed to quit. A mansion that will not sell at $18 million. An estate of $1 million with nobody alive to receive it. And $3.50 of aspirin in a supermarket in Miami. In the hand of the only son of the richest criminal America ever produced.